the tech industry, more specifically software development. So what does it mean to be a software developer? There's kind of some confusion because a lot of people think it just strictly means like the coding aspect, but it's more than that. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, software developers are the creative minds behind computer programs. And so what this really entails is beyond just like sitting down at a computer and coding, it's really about trying to figure out what type of software is needed and coming up with a framework and developing on that, even more so than just like the straightforward writing the code and functionality in that aspect. So there are application software developers who design computer applications such as word processors and games for consumers. And then there are systems software developers who create the systems that keep computers functioning properly. There's a variety of duties. Like I said, it's about creating something that someone's going to use. So there's a lot of analyzing user needs. There's a lot of design, testing, development aspects. You have to be able to create models and diagrams to be able to show what your application is supposed to be able to do. There's also a lot of documentation necessary and collaboration because generally you work in teams to do the software development. And in terms of the future of work, there's a lot of it just because the tech industry is moving so much and just continually advancing. Like I mentioned before, software developers make computer programs, and computers are everywhere, in your laptop, in your phone, in your car. There's 30 computers in the average car, but up to over 100 for some luxury vehicles. Even just generally, a lot of the airbag systems these days have their own computer themselves and these sensors and those types of things. On the grander scheme of things, NASA has their new Mars 2020 rover is well equipped with new artificial intelligence technologies, which should be able to help us, explore Mars, which is pretty cool. There's also a huge growth rate, more so than like most other occupations. It's a 24% growth rate between 2016 and 2024 for software developers, though this is specifically 31% growth rate for applications software developers and an 11% growth rate for systems software developers. And this is because there's just increasing demand. By 2020, there's an estimated 1.4 million computing jobs. So this is a really high demand area. They need a lot of software developers. And in terms of the future of work, I think it's also important to consider just work practices in themselves, which at a lot of these huge tech companies, we're seeing this kind of like work hard, play hard type of attitude. There's Google has this, they have slides, they have ping pong tables, this little area down over here. It's, comfortable workspaces, just random things like that. Also, they have flexible hours a lot of times. And so these are just new practices that, I don't know, we'll see if that starts just affecting work trends in general. In terms of skills and competencies, there's generally, obviously, computer programming. You need to know various coding languages for development. There's also critical thinking, problem solving, analytical skills. And then there's also communication and interpersonal skills, which people don't think of quite as often. But it's very important because, like we mentioned, you're working in a team. You need to be able to work on different aspects of your project. You're also making something for people, so you need to be able to understand what people want and need. And oftentimes you're making it for someone, so you need to be able to talk to that customer, figuring out what they really want from you. And so just communication is key. It's also really important to have a growth mindset because the tech industry is changing just so much every day. You need to be able to stay up to date with new technologies, new methodologies that people are using and adapting. And so it's important with this job, I feel like more than many others, it's very important to stay up to date in what's happening and be willing to learn and making that effort to learn, which is very fortunate though, because a lot of tech companies do provide resources for their employees to continue learning. In terms of developments and concerns, there's been a lot of privacy type of concerns in the media recently. We've all seen like the trials for Facebook and There's also so many like security breaches. People keep getting their personal information, such as their social security number and that type of thing, taken from huge databases. Um, and so cybersecurity is another big issue right now. In terms of other developments, there's autonomous cars, artificial intelligence, like how we saw with the Mars 2020 rover. But then we also see it in business practices. Um, with artificial intelligence, companies can instantly customize medical treatment for patients or project income flows for banking or like process insurance claims for drivers. And this just can all happen so like quickly because of this new artificial intelligence technologies. There's also augmented reality is becoming a huge thing right now, which is the interactive experience of a real world environment with the digital environment. So there's like a computer generated perception that's put on reality. So if you see down over here, we have this little Pokemon Go example. You see the real world, but then you also have a Pokeball and a Pokemon, and that type of thing is becoming more and more common. And then, in terms of keeping up with the trends, like I said, technology is just moving really, really quickly, and it's something that it's very hard to keep up with. It's hard for everyone to keep up with, even top CEOs. And so you just kind of have to make sure you put yourself out there and try to just be aware of what's happening in the tech world. And so some of the sources I like are Wired Magazine, TechCrunch, VentureBeat, and then also Twitter. Twitter is a great resource for me. I see new tech on there all the time. And then there's also online courses such as Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, and those types of things you can do to like learn new languages or learn about machine learning or those type of things. And then here are some of the sources that I used.